Hello, everybody. Welcome to Man's Favorite Podcast, a show in which me, Cameron, a.k.a. Bolo, a.k.a. Top 5 LCJ fan on Twitter, formerly known as Eric Romero 666, and my co-host, Kate, at 51st Kate's Maybe. We watch two comedy movies every episode and that have a little bit in common, and we try to talk about them and pick out those distinctions and similarities, and maybe not. So today we're going to be talking about two films that Kate picked for us, but yes. I've watched more recently, so I'm going to kind of lead the discussion on these.
Yep.
So we got a remake and an original, one of which that I believe is decidedly better than the other one, and I think we can both kind of agree on that, but maybe not entirely.
We'll see.
Yeah, those movies are Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, the 1936 classic film from Frank Capra, and its remake, the 2002 Stephen Brill x Adam Sandler collaboration, Mr. Deeds. So, before we jump into anything, I'm just going to start off. I did not like Mr. Deeds Goes to Town very much.
I was going to say, I detected the sarcasm when you said classic film.
Well, I mean, it is a classic film. It's got, Capra was kind of one of the hotshot directors of the 30s, one of the, best remembered directors of that era.
Right.
I have not been particularly exposed to his work. I've seen it happen one night. I really liked it. I've seen It's a Wonderful Life. I didn't like it all that much. And I think that film suffers from a lot of the similar things that Mr. Deeds suffers from.
Interesting. Okay.
Though I do think it's a better film overall. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this movie, it was, I think, pretty big. I think it was his biggest movie at the time.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I mean, now, obviously, I think it's decidedly It's a Wonderful Life, but...
Oh, for sure, yeah. But yeah, this is one of his more popular works.
Yes.
Yeah, he won Best Director at the Oscars for this movie, which, sure, I guess.
I think it's deserved.
I guess it goes to show the aesthetics of the Academy, of the Motion Picture Academy, have not changed all that much in the last 80 years in terms of, what specific elements of a film kind of excite them. Yeah, we'll get into that, though.
We'll get into it.
So anyway, Mr. Deeds.
Yes.
So this is a Great Depression era film, though I don't know if that's particularly clear for a while.
That's probably true. I think, I don't know if it particularly
I think it's established as present day, effectively.
Yeah, pretty much.
So anyway, starts out with this banging kind of car crash scene. It's got the sped up frame rate. Quick setup. The classic newspaper flash, headline flash.
I love those flourishes, man. I really do. We'll get into it more, but I think one of my favorite things about this movie is like Capra's sense of I guess visual dynamism, the way he kind of plays with the frame.
Yes.
In my opinion, he constantly does that.
I think his mise en scène is, in general, I think he has a few issues that I'll get into, but I think that is the strong point of the film. Sure. I think it looks real pretty, and I think he plays with shadows a lot.
Yes.
And I think his frames look pretty most of the time. Anyway, so yeah, we jump in. This super rich guy is dead, doesn't have an heir.
What are we gonna do?
Yeah. So, and then we go right away into Longfellow Deeds from Mandrake Falls, small town guy. So these two big shot guys from New York, this lawyer, Mr. Cedar, yes. and his right hand man, kind of, this
press agent.
How would you describe him? He's a typical,
he feels like a parody of a Bogart character or something. Like he's like,
gotcha. He's got that snidey exactly. accent.
Correct.
He's like talking out the side of his mouth, kind of. He's got that going.
I love him. To be honest.
It's a typical type of guy. I don't think he's funny. I think his one-liners are just bad. And he's just kind of giving them in the way. But anyway, so we go to town. everyone knows Deeds, I guess. This whole, everyone knows who Deeds is, of course.
It's a small town.
It's a small town, but we only really meet one guy from the town, and then before getting to Deeds' house, this guy who's kind of dumb. I didn't, that was something I really didn't get. Which then it's played in a different way. Their entrance is played in a different way in the remake with Peter Dante's character.
Yes.
But yeah, so
well, okay, I think the reason why I liked that specific scene is it really felt like these guys were so out of touch with, small town American life. They can't even communicate with the first person they see, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like it shows that kind of that disparity of thinking just in that very simple exchange.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
I think it works in that way.
I think what didn't entirely work for me is, while I haven't gone back to revisit it, I was thinking I would. I couldn't really get a grasp on who that guy was. I was confused as to how the way he was communicating made him seem like he was kind of dumb, but I wasn't sure if he was tricking them. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I didn't.
That's true. It feels a bit out of context in that way, but I think I don't know. I thought it was funny. What can I say?
Regardless, we get to Deeds. He is, and now this is where I get confused.
Okay.
I'm sorry to be confused. I think none of the rest of it confuses me as much.
Okay.
I couldn't pin down Deeds as a guy.
What do you mean?
So he co-owns a tallow works, which
yes.
I believe I just read that off the Wikipedia.
Correct.
Remember them saying something like that. And he's a poet.
Yep, he writes greeting cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he writes postcards. It's the same deal in the next one.
Yep.
So he seems to have kind of like a big house, and they mentioned that his dad was a doctor. So I was, I kind of took him as like a trust fund type of guy initially. So I was a little I was a little confused as to where he fit. I mean, that's what it seemed to me.
Okay.
I don't know. His house was kind of big.
That is true. He does have a surprisingly big house, and I do wonder if he probably, I don't know if they fully explain it, but I do think he has like some money left over from his parents or something.
Yeah,
which is kind of like how he exists there.
Also, I think there was I noted this later. Like there were some cultural distinctions that I could pick up easier with Sandler's character.
Sure.
Like seeing the way Sandler dresses.
Right.
was whereas the norm in this era was a much more formal norm, where I don't really see as the distinctions as well.
Yes.
So it was a little harder for me to pin down who Deeds was, whereas like Sandler, you get it right off the bat. He owns a pizza place.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair point, and I think the other thing that helps with that is kind of Sandler's a different figure from a Gary Cooper, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
For this specific role, I think Sandler's more like down to earth persona. I think like much more easily shines through. I still think Gary Cooper maintains it, but I do think Sandler, it comes off more naturally for him because he is literally a regular dude making movies. You know what I mean? And again, we'll get into that.
Definitely. And
I have a whole spiel on that.
For sure. Okay, cool. I think the film plays with those. Like, I think there's a distinction between the Mr. Deeds in both films in how they are. Because I think, I noted this, that, like, the Mr. Deeds in Mr. Deeds Goes to Town is more of, like, a weird guy than a good guy. He's much, you know what I mean?
I get that, yeah.
Like, so we start out, he gets told he's going to get $20 million.
Yeah.
And his reaction is a little less, like, indifference than it is just like, how do I say?
Well, he kind of ignores it in a way, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah.
Yes.
He's like, he kind of like, he just like kind of shrugs it off, He's like, okay.
Yes, I think.
I don't know what I'll do with this, but okay. It's kind of his reaction, I think. Whereas in the Sandler one, it's a different reaction.
Yeah, the Sandler one is I mean, it's played a little funnier. I think it's...
Yes. That I agree with.
Yeah. The Sandler one is more like, okay, cool, let's do it. You know what I mean? And this one is more like, seemingly complete disregard for it and just kind of going along with what's going on. But I think that's just in the way it's set up, and I think that's in the distinction then between Cooper, and I think that's where the distinction starts between Sandler and Cooper.
Sure. That that makes sense.
Where I just think there's a little bit confusion for me. Like it makes me like seem dumb. It makes me feel dumb.
No, not at all. No, I get you. I think that's a very valid criticism, actually. Because at first, when I heard you hated the movie, I was like, really? Like, I really didn't think. But like from what you're explaining to me, I think the idea that Gary Cooper feels like more of a cipher, like he doesn't have as much like interiority to him. That actually, I think, kind of tracks in a way.
And I think.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. I think that churns. I think that becomes a flaw later on when you have to create motivation within Gary Cooper's Mr. Deeds that's already inherent within Sandler's character. And we'll talk about that. But when when you see the poor guy run into his house, I think there's a lot of unnecessary emotions placed on him that would have worked better if they were already there.
Okay.
And I think this opening establishes Cooper's Mr. Deeds not as like a family guy, like a community guy, as much as just like a weirdo who doesn't really care all that much, Not like a guy who, I got all my fam, I got my crew, I got my pizza place, we're hanging out, we're having a good time. More so just like I got my tuba and I'm alone, whatever. I don't care. This is
damn, dude. You might convince me to lower my rating of this movie. Jeez, dude, this is making too much sense.
No, I got it down. Anyway, let's get back to the movie itself a little more.
So anyway, here, So he's like, he's getting explained to him about the money and everything, right? Like this is where we are. Yeah.
So he gets trained out instead of flown. Because they didn't do that.
And I don't know, what I will say is that scene, another thing I again really like about that scene, and it follows from our description about the initial scene where they step into Mandrake Falls. I do still think within Gary Cooper's kind of that kind of like I don't really care about this that much attitude. It again still speaks to that disparity between their ways of thinking, and that whole conversation at the dinner table is built on that, in my opinion. The way they kind of they're like talking about their own individual philosophies in a way, and that for me is what really gets across Gary Cooper's character for me, I guess, is those moments of small town versus big town mindset. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think that's where he really works for me.
Yeah, I can see that, definitely. So, yeah, we move in the train scene. Deeds is in New York now. I think
in New York now.
Deeds is in New York, New York City. I think we then go down to a journalist's office. I can't remember his name. But then we got Babe Bennett. She's a very, I think her character is a little, I think you kind of get the one scene of setting her up, and she's got an interesting persona about her. She's got this very high pitched voice, and I don't know, you can't get all that much of a read on her. Not that bad though, because I think that grows with time.
Yes. No, yeah. For me, honestly, I think Jean Arthur is like great in this movie. That's one thing I think really
she's good too. I think she's really good.
Okay, that's fair.
I think her performance in the movie is great, and I think her character is solid. I think her character is very solid, and I do think she's one of the best parts of the movie. And there's a great scene with her that I'll talk about later on.
Yeah, we'll get there. But anyway.
But yeah, so
she gets tasked with having to write about him. Yep.
We got this girl, she's like, I'll go undercover, I'll get him, I'll get Deeds, they need the scoop. This Deeds has come to town. He's he's this bumbling small town guy, we'll get him, get him right where he wants.
They're like, who's this asshole? Like
and So Deeds was Deeds is a guy. This was one thing I don't even know if we have to talk about. Deeds had expressed his interest in saving a lady in distress.
Oh yeah, no, I mean this is important. His
this is
he's a hopeless romantic in the sense that, you know, he aspires toward a kind of love born of kind of this like, there's a woman in distress, I have to go save her. And that's like his fantasy. That's the thing. Yeah. That's the thing that proves to be his downfall in a way.
Yeah. And he doesn't seem interested in, you know, anything outside of that.
Totally.
Any sort of romance outside of that. So lo and behold, when a lady is in distress, Babe Bennett, he is like, oh, awesome, I will save this girl. Yeah. So
awesome.
It's exactly what he wanted. Perfect.
Yep. Yeah. No, it falls into his lap in a way. I mean,
no,
she falls in front of his gate, and he's like, oh no, like, and then he falls in love.
That's it. Of course he falls in love. That's all he needed.
Yep.
I mean, that's kind of what he set himself up for, is, you know, not needing that much. But I think it grows nicely with, you know, him realizing, you know, needing a little bit more, you know. And I don't think he sees at that point the end goal, you know, of what it means to actually fall in love.
Sure.
Until that actually happens. But, you know, later on. But yeah, that's unimportant at the moment. So yeah, then we got
so then he takes her to dinner because he thinks she's like just like a poor girl who's in pain.
Well, meanwhile, I want to get into kind of like the kind of evil stuff that's happening, you know, which then connects this dinner. So we got the classic boss entrance tracking shot with John Cedar. You know, he's entering his office. All the people are saying hi to him. Hey, Mr. Cedar. Hey, everyone. You know, good morning. You know, all that. You know, he goes to his office, and, you know, they're like, give me the lowdown or whatever. You know what I mean? They're like, we're gonna freaking take all his money. Honestly, I'm gonna be honest,
he doesn't deserve that movie.
Like in this one and in the other one, I don't understand. I don't fully understand what the bad guys are doing. But I just like take.
I think it's pretty simple. It's just like, you know, they just want the money.
No, I know, like, exactly.
Yeah,
no, exactly.
Like,
I don't get the logistics of it. I just am okay, this is a bad guy who doesn't think Deeds needs the money, but I don't understand either of their actual motivations till near the end, like what they're.
Fair enough.
What they're at, like, I'm just kind of going with the flow. Okay, these guys want to take advantage of the fact that he got money.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, you know, I think that's in a way part of the point. It's that whole, you know, the shallowness. You could argue it's an obvious point, which is fair.
I don't need it. I don't need to know anymore.
Right.
I just like don't get it for whatever reason. It doesn't.
I get you. Yeah.
But yeah, and then we got he's the board. He's the head of the board of whatever of his, you know, some guys.
Wasn't it like an opera or something? Are you referring to that?
They're talking about some of his assets.
Yes.
You know, he owns the opera, and they're like, the opera's supposed to operate at a loss because it's art. And, you know, right before he comes to the room, these guys are making fun of him, of course. And yeah, he doesn't get art, you know, and they're obviously he's stupid. He doesn't get art operating at a deficit. He's like, why don't we just, you know, get rid of it or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, lame. I think we can agree.
What's lame?
That he doesn't, you know, he's like, let's get rid of art because it operates at a deficit, which is lame, you know? Dude.
I mean,
he's a poet. He should should not be thinking that way.
Yes and no. I think that's true. I mean, you know, I would not call Mr. Deeds the most leftist person of all time.
Oh no, we can get into that though. We can get into that.
But okay. That's a little unfair because it's literally his money's being stolen from him, bro.
I know, I'm playing with it.
Like they should not be operating at a loss.
I agree. No, I think unless you're really into the opera, then you should get rid of the opera if you're not really into it.
But yes, ultimately, you know, I guess, you know, it's I can maybe say it's inconsistent with his character that he would care about the money being lost, maybe, in a sense. I don't know.
I think it's more just like confusion, not getting, like, it's just showing him he doesn't get art.
Fair.
You know, he doesn't get the opera. You know, and I'm just adding on a little qualm, you know, but he's a poet, but whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think he gets art. I think it's literally just the fact that he's like, wait a minute, why is this a loss?
Yeah.
You know.
Anyway, so then those things kind of, you know, those things of him being kind of made fun of. Basically, you know, we're setting up this sinister backdrop. Then we jump into that scene at the dinner. He takes her to dinner, you know.
And I'm looking at frames from the movie right now, and oh my god, the way he stares at her, he is deeply in love. Like, this is exactly what he wanted. You know what I mean?
Well, this is what he wants. He doesn't. You know, he doesn't need anything else. He just. Yes. This is what he wanted. He wanted a girl, you know, a girl in distress, and he got it. Let's go. You know.
Yep. And yeah, this scene is also, I think, a great one because this is where they're invited over by those professional writers, right? Yeah. They invite him over. Yeah. There's a similar scene in The Sandler. I forget.
Very similar. It's very
those guys are also writers.
Scene.
Okay. Really?
So,
okay.
Well, it's a little different. They kind of put that opera piece. They don't have that previous scene with the board members, but they put the opera piece in in the form of an opera singer who's at the table with them.
Oh, okay, you know? Right. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so we got these poets. They're bringing Deeds over to make fun of him. They're like, hey, look at this fool. It's that guy. They hear that he writes postcards, you know. They make him drink. You know.
Yeah.
And they grill him with questions. You know, it takes some time. You know, he thinks they're boys with him. He thinks he's, you know, kind of, you know, got.
He
some
realizes
guys
they're jerking him around. You know, he realizes.
Yeah, and then he realizes it.
Yeah.
And this is a moment that's played almost exactly the same.
Yes.
In the Sandler version, we got
which that shocked me too, because for the listener, I saw the Sandler version twice actually.
Yeah. No, like that feels like a Sandler moment. It doesn't feel like a moment you would expect as much in the 30s, you know, in this Capra
100%. Because basically what happens is one of the authors ends up, you know, pissing him off so much that he actually punches him in the face. Which I think is hilarious, and again, I thought that would be I thought that would be a Sandler exclusive thing, but you know, seeing Gary Cooper do that was that was a shock.
Mm-hmm. So he hits two of them, and then we got this other poet who's very uppity. He's got this. He's got like a monocle on it. That might be wrong. I don't know, but he's got these round glasses or something, and he's like, "Hit me." He's like, "You got to hit me too." He's like, "I want to be hit," and he's like, "Asking to be hit," and he's like, "No." And then the drunk poet is talking to him. He's monologuing to him.
Yes, and he convinces him to go on a night on the town, right? That's where they go get drunk, and again, another thing I thought would be Sandler exclusive. But
and I was actually so Sandler, they played it differently.
True.
But we'll get back to that.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm probably jumping ahead a bit too much.
Yeah, like I wonder if we should just even dive into this, but it doesn't matter. So we got this. You know, drunk night on the town. Fade into Mr. Deeds in bed. The next morning, you know, and he is told he's recited his drunk antics by Raymond Walburn's character, the butler.
Yep.
Which is another thing. I might as well say this now since we're on it. Raymond Walburn, who is great in a number of Sturgis films. I don't know if I've seen him outside of that. Okay. You know, he's so muted here. He's super muted.
Really? I mean, he doesn't have much to do here. But
he's not given much of a character outside of just, you know, using the same kind of you know, butlery affection.
He could have used a scene like the foot one in the Sandler.
Yeah, he could have used a foot fetish, maybe. You know, just a little.
He could have used that. Yes,
put him over the edge. Yeah, right?
make it a little spicier. You know.
But so he's telling him all the stuff he did last night. You know, he fed candy to a horse or something like that. I don't know, something like that. You know, he did. You know, this was actually funny.
Yeah,
I laughed at this part. You know,
because he's just like very like nonchalantly telling him everything that his boss did. And he's like, so your pants were gone. You weren't wearing pants. And he's like, you started searching my pockets. Like,
So he's like, you came home without pants, and then he's like, oh, isn't that illegal? You get arrested, and the butler's like, yeah, that's what the two policemen who took you home said. That's when I laughed. I was like, okay, that was funny.
Yeah, that was a good line. Yeah. And then also, of course, he finds out that in the papers everything was listed, and his whole night was exposed.
Yeah, people are saying mean things about he's on a bus or something, and people are like, "This Deeds guy is such a fool," which is like, all right, okay, cool.
Really? I mean, it's not that bad.
He's on a bus, and they're like, "This Deeds guy is a fool."
All right.
It's
okay,
like,
think of it this way, Cam. All right, this is how people talk about like a lot of rich people today. Like, just go on Twitter, okay? Like, oh, Sydney Sweeney was photographed with her racist parents. Oh, and then everyone's having like a whole hissy fit about it. Like, it's not. I think it's a very normal thing to happen. Like, yes, is it on the nose? Sure, but I don't think it's that bad. It makes sense.
I think it's a fine inclusion. I think it's very lazy, and I think a lot of things are gained in very lazy ways in this film. I think a lot of things happen in very lazy ways. I think it's very lazy to have him on the train overhear someone saying that to get the point across that people think he's a fool. I think it's just odd because he doesn't need all that. He doesn't need all that to feel ashamed, to feel like a fool, to feel like he doesn't belong. He had that thing last night that just happened where people were making fun of him.
That's true.
I think they're trying a little too hard to jokerify him. I think they're trying too hard to reach a breaking point that can be reached in a much more natural way.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. I think again, for me, it's still more so kind of speaks to that small town versus big town mentality. What people in like a more urban setting would think about the antics of someone like that, for me, both of these movies are the story of Kanye West. So, it's, no, I'm kidding. But no, but in all seriousness, again, I think the reason why it works for me is, again, because it gets at those kind of, I wouldn't call it class disparities, but, those kind of, the way you're raised, the way people in America kind of view each other on different sides of the aisle. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like it kind of speaks
which
to that.
Actually draws back to the Sydney Sweeney thing you were talking about, because
yes.
You grow up in a city, you grow up in an environment in which people like Mr. Deeds don't exist. You just think they don't exist. You just act as though they're pawns, or they're people
100%.
who shouldn't exist, when there are people who deserve as much empathy as anyone else and understanding 100%. Of how they reach the point that they are in their lives.
No, I think it's undeniable that there are so many people who are in such a bubble where, to them, anyone who's in a red state is evil or not worth caring about, which is just totally BS.
Is ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It really speaks to the way people have kind of, I guess, like I said, it is a bubble. Like, we've kind of like formed our own kind of echo chamber.
Yes.
And I don't know. For me, to show that in a 1936 movie is still pretty crazy. But hey.
Well, I mean, I don't think this is the most progressive film. I think,
Fair enough. We can get into that with the ending.
So anyway, right after this, we got Mr. Deeds and Babe at who I forgot her persona's name, but she's playing a persona still.
Oh yes, yeah.
At Grant's tomb, Ulysses S. Grant, and they dive into this. I don't even remember. I just blocked it out. He's talking about.
I see General Lee with a broken heart surrendering. Blah blah blah.
I don't know.
I can see the beginning of a new nation. I mean, okay.
It was something about how America's awesome and shit.
That's not what.
Dude.
I don't. Okay, I'll admit. So I forgot to even mention this at the beginning, but my history with Capra is similar to Cam's, where I have only seen. Before this, I'd only seen It Happened One Night and then like one other movie. And the other movie was Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, a movie that I think is very nauseatingly idealistic in its view of American politics. But for me, it works better here because I think Mr. Deeds' idealism feels more natural to me, I guess. And we can also get into that with the Sandler, where it's even more so. But for me, it helps me like ignore things like, you know, him standing in front of Grant's tomb, being like, "Oh boy," like, you know, it more so gets across the weight of responsibility that he feels he has, which I think is, you know, a valid perspective for me personally.
Okay. Yeah, I had to pull up the quote. He says, I see a small Ohio farm boy becoming a great soldier. I see thousands of marching men. I see General Lee with a broken heart surrendering, and I can see the beginning of a new nation. Like Abraham Lincoln said, and I can see that Ohio boy being inaugurated as president. Things like that can only happen in a country like America. Which...
Yeah, you know, he's using it to kind of marvel at the position he's in now, which I think is...
That's fair.
It's
no, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can... I'm with you on that. Yeah. I think... To me, considering how few moments of characterization we get with Mr. Deed's character, to me, you know, we don't have him being as goofy as Sandler's guy is. You know, we have him slide down a banister. We have him do an echo thing, which I think is a good scene. It just feels like, okay, when they jump into this, because I'm like, all right, is this what we're trying to get out of Mr. Deeds, is who he is? Because so much of this movie is the surroundings of Mr. Deeds. You know, what's going on around him. You know, who's conniving around him. You know, who's being rude to him. But you know, this is his kind of moment, and this is what's getting delivered. And I'm a little bit like, okay, that's kind of lame. But yeah, so then right after this, we got this scene. You know, this is my favorite scene in the movie, probably.
Okay.
They go to a quiet little grove in the park, and he's like, this is great. There's no photographers around, and they cut to like some photographers, which is a good joke that is not executed very well.
Really,
to me,
I like this.
I'm complaining so much, but like the cut is too long. It's too awkward. It's not a skillful cut, and it bothers me.
But like,
it bothers me.
Whatever. The joke is pretty funny. Good.
The joke is
fun.
I
think I just think Gene Arthur's two photographer, homies are just hilarious to me. Like, I just think they're funny.
But yeah, I do like this scene. It's a good scene. I think.
Yes.
I think this is good because it shows the truth bleeding into her false life, because you know she talks about growing up knowing this drumming song or whatever. You know, she knows this song.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, okay, there's like a hint of truth coming in, you know, because then they play the song and you're like, oh, okay. So you know, this much we've gone through has not been a lie. This is not a fabrication, you know. You know, it just kind of helps set a better boundary of like, you know, is this all just a trick, you know, without making it too obvious of her like professing her love, you know. It's a nice little touch of kind of like making it seem like she's actually caring.
Absolutely agree. And for me, I also just think, you know, Cooper and Gene Arthur they have such great chemistry.
Yeah,
I love when they start singing and she like gets out the drumsticks and
and she's banging
that stuff is so good.
That's a good scene. Very solid scene.
And then that scene cuts off because then he hears fire engines and he's like, oh boy.
And then he
jumps onto one, right? Yeah.
Yes, he jumps onto the fire engine. He's really into fire engine. That's fun. You know, that's fun.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
So yeah, I think.
It's after that scene too. That scene is important because it's where Babe Bennett starts regretting her actions more and more. She starts falling for him.
Yes. And then we sort of delve into a good amount of like, you know, like her, you know, grappling with where she's at. You know, they have a romantic scene out in the fog, which looks very pretty, you know, where he reads a poem to her.
Wait, I think you skipped over the banister stuff and all that. I mean, I guess.
Oh, the echo and the banister?
Yeah. Or I guess, okay. And also the fact that, wait, the fog scene comes after, like, the whole opera thing, no? Or is that before? I can't remember. I'm, like, looking through.
What opera thing?
Remember there's, like, a whole, like, scene where it's, like, the opera reception and, you know, everyone's making fun of him when he shows up. Stuff like that, and then he's like, "Screw this! He's had enough." And then he goes to Babe's apartment after that, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's where they have like their meeting, and I think, that's when he takes her out. No. Yes,
I believe so.
Okay. Yep. They go in the fog, like you said.
I was not expecting to go through this kind of in order, but we really are. So forgive me.
Oh, okay. No, my bad.
No, it's fine. But yeah, that scene in the fog is pretty nice. You know.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
they're being very honest with each other.
You know, she's hating this. You know.
Yeah.
She loves him. She's stuck.
She's begging him to leave.
She wants to tell him the truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's begging him to leave New York.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Because, you know, she's like, everyone's just going to take advantage of you.
Everyone's, and
she's
I'm
talking
part
about
of this. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
need to go. And he's like, no, you're the only one that's not freaking lying to me. You made up for all the fakes I met, is what he says.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice scene. Then he runs away from the scene and runs into a trash can. That's funny. I laugh. You know, and then he runs into a car, and then he goes around the corner, and you just hear the audio, you know. Like, watch where you're going, and say, you know, it's funny.
And all that's the exact same in the Sandler, too.
Yep, pretty much.
Wow. Like,
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Honestly, it's weird. Like, you know, the one thing that I'm glad that we chose these two movies for this episode is you can see a lot of those classic Hollywood tenets within even Sandler's own comedic style.
Yeah.
And that almost opens up more of his filmography for me in a way that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see kind of like the little like slapstick kind of touches that are like, okay, obviously, you know, Sandler's going to include this, and then you know, some of the more like broader, you know, Oscar prestige type of movie steps that this doesn't take as much, you know. Sure. Anyway, so yeah, Mr. Deeds spends this whole movie with all this money. He does nothing with it. This is my biggest issue. He doesn't care about there's a Great Depression going on apparently. He does not care. This movie has there are no poor people in sight in this movie. There's no
What are you talking about?
I'm not done. There's no wealth inequity. There is these fancy people in New York, and there's the normal city folk in Mandrake Falls. There is no New York for anyone in between. You know, New York, there's no concept of that is present in this movie until all of a sudden some guy breaks into his house and he's like, what? You're so... sorry. This is right after Babe tells the truth to him. So he's in a terrible mood. So he's in a really bad mood.
Like Babe fully regrets she quits her job, blah, 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 and she goes and tells him the truth. Right as he's about to propose to her, too, which is, you know, that's the sad part for me.
Yeah, he was doing that whole setup. You know, he's got this... nice little scene. You know, he's got the table. You know, the flowers are too high. He asks for the smaller flowers. He asks the butler to sit down, kind of get in position where Babe would be, and
then the press agent lets him know, nope, she backstabbed you.
And then she's like, I was gonna tell you.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, right, whatever. Who cares? He's done. Everyone's a faker. And then all of a sudden, this guy's in his house. Mr.
Pointing
Deeds,
a gun at him.
Yeah, he's got a gun, and he's like, we lost our farm. We're poor. We're so poor. We lost our farm. Everything sucks, and you got so much money, which is like, yeah, valid.
Yeah.
But Deeds is like, you're probably a faker, which is so dumb because it's like, Deeds.
No,
well, I mean that's like
that makes complete sense. Everyone up until now has stabbed him in the back. Like
that makes sense, of course. Yeah. But Deeds, that part makes sense. No, and it makes sense when it comes in the movie, of course. But Deeds not understanding the concept of poor people existing in the city and people not having money is insane, and it makes him look like a loser. And it gives him there's nothing empathetic about that because Deeds just seems like he doesn't seem like a smart person at all. Like I don't really get it. I just think I feel like Deeds is not given enough credit because he appears to be a fairly smart but eccentric guy, but then he doesn't have any kind of semblance of, you know, inequity, and he doesn't seem to
that is actually that's a very fair point, I think.
Yeah.
There's a sense of getting back to our original point about people being in their own kind of echo chamber, their own bubble. I mean, Mr. Deeds kind of puts himself in one too, you know?
100%.
I think it takes that moment to kind of snap him out of it. But in a way, I kind of like that, you know? It feels more subversive than just, you know, him being this perfect guy from the beginning who like...
Yeah.
Like for him, this responsibility is not a responsibility at all. You know, he's just trying to find his way.
He doesn't feel any responsibility.
100%. It takes the guy who breaks in for him to realize that, you know, if I don't help these people, no one will, because everyone else is a backstabber. Everyone else is a POS, you know?
Yes.
So I still think it works, but your point makes complete sense. Where
I think the way it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, you go ahead.
The way it works, I think the way it doesn't work for me is that it sets it up so that this moment can be a big moment. And I think although Deeds' character kind of makes sense as kind of like just a super indifferent guy who doesn't seem to care, you know, I think both not even including any sort of, you know, even semblance of poor people or any like class division until this point is odd. And also it's a little lazy to have this type of scene, just to create a character where this type of scene is some sort of a motivation that sparks him to do something. I just don't think.
No, that's really valid.
That's something that works for me.
That's a really valid point.
Even though the character somewhat works, of Deeds being this guy who doesn't really get it, but is who's just grew up in an echo chamber, as you said, grew up in a bubble where, you know, there isn't that issue. You know, everyone kind of gets through. You know,
you know, everyone's at the same like economic standing, you know,
small
everyone's
town,
kind of chilling.
You know,
So no, I get what you're saying though. It is even I didn't even think about that. Like you like don't see like a poor person at all until this point.
No, you do not, and it bothers me. Like
which is a bit capra to me, because like I even like Sturgis would have done that like within like the first 5 minutes.
I think,
you know?
if you're gonna make that a part of the story, you have to like make that a part of the story. That has to be part of the entire movie. Like that is
absolutely
part of this city. That is part of this era. You know.
Yes. Totally. Especially for a movie set in the Great Depression. I mean, it's kind of it's actually kind of insane.
And that's the biggest, like one of the biggest things that I think the remake improves on, honestly. But we'll get into that. Sure. So So yeah, what happens then?
Well, he feeds the guy who broke in, and then he's like,
he feeds the guy.
All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm gonna. What was the thing they were going to set up again? It was a farm, right?
Farms for a bunch of people. Anyone who wanted to work could.
Yep. He was gonna put all of his money into that.
Yeah, $20 million or 18 million. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, whatever. And then of course Mr. Cedar and his. And I think
no,
also
you can't do that.
Yeah, they're all like, hell no. And also we can't forget. Although. This is one thing I did have a flaw with the movie, actually. The family members who want the money, who weren't the heirs, they're like so forgettable. I mean,
they're so
like, who are they?
Yeah, like whatever.
For me, the villain is Mr. Cedar, and that's it. Like I don't even know. Like these people are all there, and they like show up randomly, but like they're like it's like who cares? That's one thing I'll admit. Like
aren't they?
You know.
Aren't they just doesn't Cedar then use them in the final trial as like
yes that's like the main purpose for them. Yep.
Okay, so anyway, he's got this huge line of poor people, you know, we want a job, this is gonna be awesome, you know, the Swedish guy's at the front of the line, you know, anyone can it's America, so you can get a Swedish guy can, you know, be a farmer, you know, whoever wants to be a farmer. The Swedish guy gives him his sandwich, he's so nice, you know, America, like he's, you know, he'd give you his shirt off his back if he could. You know, everyone gets a sandwich. Yeah, everyone, you get lunch. Thanks, Mr. Deeds. And then the cops show up. Party's over. Party's over. You're coming with us. They try to throw him in the loony bin, you know, for being.
That shot is crazy though, dude. The shot of him in front of the window.
Yes, I agree. Great shot.
Nutty shot.
In front of the window, he's in the loony bin, you know. He's like, why would I even go? This is at this point he doesn't like know, he doesn't have any motivation to go on at all. He doesn't feel, you know, he doesn't want to go on. He's like, whatever, you know. He's got this whole trial thing.
And real quick, actually, for me, the reason why that lack of motivation, that complete defeat, really is sold to me is because of his love for Babe Bennett. I think without that, I would feel a lot less invested in, you know, in his, you know, ability to then fight back against the system that put him put him down. But it's that love for Babe Bennett that was crushed so deeply.
Yeah, that just crushes him, and he's like, I don't want to do anything.
Yeah. That for me, reason. And for me, Gary Cooper sells that really well in his facial expressions too. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, then we got this whole trial, which is honestly just very forgettable for me. What? It's all whatever. It's like, what beats it's gonna hit.
I mean, yeah, but I don't know. I think they say a lot of like really, I guess, a lot of really. I don't know how to say it, but like a lot of the lines in this court scene, I'm just like so true. Like, you know what I mean? Like he takes their words and spits it back at them in a way that I just for me, as someone who's a big fan of court scenes in movies, I
don't think I'm generally a big fan.
Really? Okay.
I don't really have an opinion, I guess, but
okay. No, for me, I've seen like so many, and I've also for those who follow me on Twitter, they know that I've literally not stopped talking about the Better Call Saul finale. So scenes like this where the main character's whole moral compass is kind of challenged within the setting of a courtroom just kind of inherently appeals to me, and I think they pay off on it well for me personally.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
I think I just think it hits the mode of like, we're building. He's not talking the whole time, so it's we're building this case against him. We're down it. We're hitting him. We're hitting him so hard. He's got no chance.
Yes.
And then you get that breaking point. You get that narrative like breaking point. Like, I love you. Babe Bennett's on the stand. I love you, and he's like, what?
She's like completely breaking down.
Which
she's
I actually like this because I like how she's under oath and she says I love you, and then he's like, what I think in my head is, oh, Mr. Deeds, he's an American guy, he's like, oh, she's under oath, she has to be telling the truth because they told her just to tell the truth. So he's like, right. Like that's how I interpret it. It's like, oh, okay,
100%.
Mm-hmm. She's telling the truth.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
they don't really like explicitly kind of say that. It's more just like her saying I love you, but that's kind of how I thought of it as, which I think is
totally. That to him
it
is the most truthful she's been with him.
Yeah, and she's under oath. It's like funny.
Exactly. And so that's what like shocks him out of it, where he's like, what, maybe
back from the grave. He's ready to hunt. He's got this whole for real. And he's got this whole case. He's like, let's go. And then he's got his thing is like, everyone's a little weird. I'm weird too. This guy's doodling. This guy's an O filler. He's filling his O's. And they're looking down. He's got doodles.
I love that. The one lawyer who like keeps doing the tick over and over again. I forget. And then also the family member is actually funny in this one too, because then his wife keeps hitting him. She's like, "Shut up! Stop doing that." He can't stop doing it. I forget what it is. It's like a specific tick he's doing, but I thought that stuff was really funny. And yeah, like again, I wouldn't call this like the most progressive or I guess understanding portrayal of like mental health, but it's like I think it's fine. Like I think what the main thing the scene conveys is that the love between Mr. Deeds and Babe Bennett is what motivates them to fight back against the system.
For sure.
And I guess I'm just the kind of person where that just inherently appeals to me. You know what I mean?
I think my favorite part about this trial is he's got all the farmer dudes in the crowd.
Yes.
And they're laughing. They're laughing along. They're cheering for him. I think it's a fun touch.
It's a very live court scene. It feels very full. Everyone feels like they're taking part in a way, and I do like that.
Sure.
Anyway,
I wrote down a note that says Deeds employs Trump's Hunter Biden style shaming, typical deplorable move, but I don't remember what that was. I think he shamed someone's son for something, but I can't remember. It was lame though. I remember it was lame.
Whose son? Wait,
I don't remember.
Let me see. I think.
Bro, I wrote it down. I don't know.
It's either the lawyer or it's the.
I can't remember. But he was like, "Your son isn't all that good anyway, and so why are you fucking coming at me with this shit?" And then the guy's just sitting there awkwardly,
God.
And then he slapped the lawyer too, right?
Yes.
He slapped Cedar.
Mm-hmm.
I also wrote, I laughed. There was a weird guy at the end. That weird little guy at the end was another laugh thing. I don't know. I think he was next to Cedar. I don't remember.
Your notes are so funny, bro.
Well, I wrote down my third. That was the third time I laughed. There was a little guy, and he was funny.
Ugh.
Yeah, but yeah, that was and then the final shot's pretty nice. You know, it's a tight close up. They kiss. You know, he's holding Babe. You know, Gene Arthur and Gary Cooper are together in a tight embrace, and they love each other, and they're good to go. You know, they won the trial, of course. You know, the judge was like, I think he's not insane. You know, good judge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
and then they
Mr.
kiss.
Deeds.
Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
that's
kissed.
Mr. Deeds Goes to Town.
That's Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, and yeah, I think I didn't like the movie very much. I thought it wasn't good. I didn't think it was funny at all.
Damn.
I thought some of the dramatic flourishes were solid from a director's point of view. You know, I think his mise en scène is pretty solid. I think he does the romance justice in general, but I think it suffers from some major structural problems. I think the court scene is dumb. I think it's lame. I don't care about it. And I just think the whole setup with like kind of this, the poor farmer coming in and, you know, giving him, you know, tell him like it is, you know, it's just is rough for me. And
okay.
And yeah, and I don't find Cooper all that charming in any way. I don't find most of the cast charming. I think a lot of it's very muted, and I think it just it makes you long for a lot more seeing the talent on screen when, like, I don't know, Gene Arthur's killing it, and I don't know, you can see some talented people just not being given the material to work with.
Okay.
I think I gave this movie 1.5 stars out of 5. Would you like to talk about some overall thoughts real quick?
Yeah. I guess for me, I definitely disagree overall. I will say you brought up a lot of valid points, and I think I do think Capra doesn't particularly have the best understanding of you know, the economic disparity in America during that time. You know, you said, it's very much a film that stays in its echo chamber for so long until it's convenient to not do so, which I think
until it's narratively you know, profound.
Right. Which I think is totally fair. But for me, you know, I do think it's very funny. I think most of the characters are great. I think Jean Arthur's is unbelievable. I think she really sells the desperation, the guilt of her love, and you know, it makes a lot of those scenes ring really true for me. And like you said, Capra's a great director. You know, his sense of mise en scène is great. His blocking is great. You know, I think he times jokes well for me personally. I don't know. I totally get what you're saying though, with a lot of what the movie does. And I think I would argue that the Sandler movie does a lot of that stuff better. But
well, we will chat about that.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But yeah, I would probably rate this movie like I when I first saw it, I gave it like a 9, but I'd probably go 8 now. But I still do really like it. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, so we will take a break because I need some water, and we will come back and we will talk about Mr. Deeds. Woo. All right, we're back to talk about Mr. Deeds 2.
We back.
Or Mr. Deeds
Electric Boogaloo.
Mr. Deeds 1. Without the Ghost of Town.
Yeah, for he doesn't go to town anymore.
In this one, I think. That's the
why did they remove that? Is that a...
Well, I think the distinction is that in this one, it's the same movie, but he does not go to town. So we...
No, I was thinking, like, is there like a sexual connotation to like going to town or something? Like, I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe.
Is that why?
I think...
I mean, in that case, I feel like Sandler would have wanted to keep it in.
Mr. Deeds just seems simpler because it's like you knew Mr. Deeds when he went to town. Like, you know who Mr. Deeds is. Yeah. This is him again. He's back, you know? But he's Sandler this time.
It's like with Logan.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
Deeds.
Literally, it's exactly like Logan. Except that's stupider because no one knows who the fuck Logan is. I get maybe people do.
Logan is honestly such a stupid title for the movie. Why just call it like... I mean, I guess they already used Wolverine.
I don't know.
But still.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Yeah. They were kind of running low. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, we're back to talk about Mr. Deeds, the 2002 Stephen Brill film, which was not
Stephen Brill is the GOAT.
I think he did Little Nicky, so that puts him down a notch.
Which is a great movie. Do not listen to my podcast co-host.
That's what else has he done? Any other good ones?
He did. I think.
I'll check.
Wasn't it him on 50 First Dates, or am I capping? Oh no, he did Sandy Wexler.
Okay.
My bad.
He did. Let's see. He did Without a Paddle, Drillbit Taylor. He did The Do-Over, Sandy Wexler, and Hubie Halloween. Okay, so he did Hubie Halloween. So
Hubie's great too. I mean, he directed the 100% Fresh special, which is also fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, Mr. Deeds.
Yeah, no. Stephen Brill. Bottom line, he's a heavy hitter for Happy Madison, and he made this in 2002.
He made this in 2002. It was not nominated, and it did not win any Academy Awards, but I believe it got some Razzies. Who knows? Probably. Fucking stupid. But it had a cinema score of an A-, which is good. That's what, it's.
Yes.
So screw you, critics, who gave it a 22% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is lame.
Oh, my God. You know what? I wonder what Roger Ebert had to say about this movie.
Okay,
That's what I know.
Here's this. So it won Worst Actor at the Razzies.
Okay.
Or no, it was nominated. But it won the Kids' Choice Award for Favorite Movie Actor. So who the fuck has the taste?
Let's go!
Seriously. Jesus Christ. You're getting outperformed by
the Kids' Choice Awards always get it right.
Yeah, no, dude. I remember, I think in like 2010, though, it was near the end of when I was watching, maybe 2009. I think Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Squeakquel, won Best Movie, and I was like, nope. And that was the end of it for me. I was like, nope.
The Squeakquel.
Like, nope, we're done. No way. Yeah, we're not doing that.
Any true Alvin head knows the road trip is a lot better. Of course.
All right. Mr. Deeds 2. So anyway, major distinctions with this movie. We start out on Mount Everest instead. You know, we got the typical Sandler Happy Madison touch. A much goofier ending. You know, this guy's. He's climbing Mount Everest. He's like, no, I don't want to. They're like, we have to go. It's too dangerous. He's like, no. His old man. And he gets to the top, frozen up at the top, and he's dead. So Sandler.
Which is really funny. That's a great change from the original,
Sandler's
honestly.
Deeds. Mm-hmm. We show up in town at the airport, and it's Peter Dante is there to greet Peter Gallagher's character and this other guy. I don't know who the actor is. His name's Anderson, you know, and
the actor's name is Eric.
Yeah, and this
Avard.
is kind of a new character.
I don't know.
You know, it takes on the role of like the secondary guy to the main evil guy that the press agent in the previous movie had, but he's not. He's not as close of a confidant with Sandler's Deeds. You know, he's more of like a sidekick, a henchman, so to speak. But you know, he ends up kind of having a redemption. So yeah, they're greeted by Peter Dante's, you know, sloppy, goofy stoner type of guy, and he, we then pivot to Mr. Deeds' Pizza. Deeds' Pizza, you know, he's a pizzeria owner this time. And, you know, we see all these townspeople in the pizzeria. They all know Mr. Deeds. You know, he's their guy. You know, he's their buddy. And he's kind of the townsperson's guy, you know, as opposed to how, you know, Cooper's Deeds was this little bit curmudgeonly weirdo. Deeds is like the full-on towns guy. Everyone knows him. You know, he's got his pizza place. He's nice to everyone.
Yeah.
You know, Peter Dante's character shows up, and he was like, I was skipping work, you know, and Sandler's Deeds is like, whatever, you know, you were doing that funny voice you're doing that sick voice was really good, and he did it, and he was like, yeah, that's good, you know, classic stuff. But yeah, so they're in the pizzeria. The rich guy tells him, you know, you're inheriting all this money, and he's, you know, what he does is he's looking, and there's a guy in a police uniform, and he's like, they're like, it's $1 billion, 20 billion, whatever. I don't even remember, dude. 40 billion, ton of money.
Oh yeah, it's a much higher amount than the first one, no? Yeah. Accounting for inflation, I guess.
I think it's still much higher. But yeah, he's like, wait a minute, you're not a cop, you know, he says to the guy, and you know, that's how they play it off in the same way that, you know, Deeds was just like, started playing his tuba, you know, he's just like whatever, you know. He's goofing around. He's got his boys, you know. In this, they really delve into the greeting card thing. You know, he's got all these greeting cards. He's got a big wall of greeting cards that he wrote for all different occasions.
He's kind of a local star for it.
No,
honestly.
and they'll know him for it. He's like an artist, you know. He's like their artist.
Yeah.
You know, and they really enjoy they really indulge in that, in his activity and his hobby. He does a reading of a new one and they'll clap for him in the pizza place. You know, it's great stuff. It's
100%.
It's great stuff. I think the town in this is so much better because it's actually part of Mr. Deeds.
Totally.
You know, whereas that is just like he came from
I
Mandrake
100%
Falls.
agree.
This uses Mandrake Falls in a way that I really wanted the original to. So I was very happy with that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And for me, that comes kind of like almost like as a natural extension of Sandler's style.
Totally.
You know,
100%.
One thing that I really love about this movie is it feels like the clearest example of Sandler's, you know, hangout tendencies, the way he wants to kind of use the film as a community that works together to make you laugh. And Mandrake Falls becomes kind of like this kind of metaphor for that, you know, for the Happy Madison crew in a way. And I like the way he sets that up. I think it's interesting.
So he's got you know, he's got that whole town. He's got his posse. He's got he's got Crazy Eyes,
the boys.
You know, Buscemi's character. You know, he's got, and yeah, I do think that's interesting.
I love Buscemi cameos in Sandler movies, dude. They're so good.
I do think it's very interesting to kind of to see a remake from Sandler's perspective, because you know it's a very clear way of seeing kind of the Happy Madison obsessions, I guess. And the things they care about, and they do really care about these side characters that have really goofy quirks, you know, not you know, not necessarily super compelling characters, but just like a few different guys who kind of have their own shtick that they just bring, and the way he fits that in here is pretty nice.
No, yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, like you mentioned, you know, Peter Dante, Alan Covert. Buscemi, they all know the assignment when it comes to Sandler movies. You know, they make sure that they match the absurdity, the tone of like any movie they're in, and this is no exception. I mean, everyone's funny in this, in my opinion. I think I think it really, just from the get-go, like everything works for me. And then so from here is where he then goes into the city.
But
right?
first they stop over in Connecticut to grab Wendy's.
Oh yeah. Which
so
is
goofy.
great.
Yeah, and then they
I mean, yeah, would Gary Cooper's guy do that?
No, he would not go to Wendy's. In there, you know, he gets Anderson on his side. You know, it's a great scene in the plane. You know, he's getting Anderson on his side. He's singing, I don't remember how it comes out, but he's singing Space Oddity, you know. He gets the pilots to sing. He gets Mr. Anderson or whatever his, you know, just sing with him, you know. It's goofy.
Incredible.
And Peter Gallagher's character is just like,
that.
Ugh. You know, he's such a villain here, you know. He's not a lawyer, he's the business guy. He's like the Happy Madison not the Billy Madison, you know. Villain, where it's like the guy who wants to take over the business, you know, and is trying to make it so this freaking dummy isn't, you know.
You know, to me, Gallagher's character in this kind of, I guess, metatextual reading of this movie that I'm gonna keep like interjecting here and there. To me, his character feels like the usual person who doesn't really get Adam Sandler. You know, obviously, Adam Sandler's movies do not have a great reputation, and to me, his character kind of feels like that cynic, you know, or that someone who thinks they're kind of lowbrow, beneath him. You know what I mean? And that shows through in Gallagher's performance very well. I think it's very
typical.
It's very
like,
funny.
Sandler villain. But
it is typical.
You know, he plays it well. He does play it well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we got the plane singing scene, and then I think we then meet Babe Bennett's Winona Ryder, whose name is unchanged.
Woo.
And I think her intro is a little weird. You know, she's got.
What happens again? Remind me.
Well, I think she doesn't have any money. Because she spent all her money on shoes, which is a little odd, you know. It's some like Happy Madison stuff that's just okay, it's a little eye rolly, but she's great. Fair. Honestly, she's very solid.
Oh yeah, I think Ryder's fantastic, and she does embody the Jean Arthur type, that archetype very well.
Yeah, definitely. She has she has a very sincere kind of approach.
Yes, sincerity is the perfect word.
She's very sincere and like a little like you can feel kind of the hysterity kind of in the in these like moments where she has to deceive and she doesn't want to anymore. You can really feel it come out of her. She's got I don't know, her eyes do a lot of good work, and I think she's very solid. I guess I don't really know how to pin it down, but yeah, you feel a lot of similarities in their performances.
Totally. Her cynicism being worn down is communicated very well, just like it is in the original, I think.
So yeah, walking through a few things, a few differences. We got the dinner scene, which is very, very similar, almost the same.
Yes.
But
But then they show you a bit of their drunk night out, right?
No, this is how it's set up. So anyway, at the end of the dinner scene, John McEnroe shows up, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to go out in the town?" And he's like, "Yeah, let's do it." Yeah, and then instead of the morning, and it cuts to the morning after. I was a little bit like, no. Instead of the butler explaining it to him, we got Babe Bennett recorded it all. She had a secret little camera, and and he turns on the TV and it's on there. He's he's like throwing eggs at cars or something. Him and McEnroe. They're hanging out with some guys on the street.
And they show the horse part too, right?
I can't remember.
I think they're
hanging out with some guys on the street. Like it's so goofy. It's like
it's hilarious.
It's so silly, yeah.
Oh man.
But it's fun. I like that because it was the same way of kind of paying homage, but like I want to see those silly moments, and I was glad that we were able to.
Totally.
But yeah.
No, yeah. Sandler like revels in those silly moments. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
his character is just so much sillier and goofier. And you feel it, and you really instead of like idiosyncratic. He's just like, he's a guy, he's just like a regular Joe, who, who is goofy in this setting, He's not like idiosyncratic in that same sense. He's just like, doesn't really belong, and he's playing with that nicely, He's
totally. So I totally get that.
It rehashes these, it rehashes these scenes with the echo and the butlers doing the echo, and that's whatever, It's it's a remake.
When is the foot scene?
Oh, him getting his foot hit.
Is that again?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, which is hilarious. I love that scene.
Yeah, he's got.
Because so in this one, the butler's played by John Turturro, who is hilarious. I love him in this role. And yeah, there's that great scene where the Sandman like takes off his shoe and shows he has like a what is it again? It's
foot.
Yeah,
so
it's
feel anything,
frostbite, right? Yeah. Yeah, he's like, hit it as hard as you can. And Turturro's like very reluctant about it. And then he does it really hard at one point. And the Sandman's like, why would you do
he stabs
that? And then he
him
starts laughing. And it, exactly.
And then he's like, he's like, I'm kidding. Just silly.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Weirdly enough, brings to mind Freddy Got Fingered with the...
No, there's
the hitting of the leg.
the extended kind of moments of goofiness that the original doesn't include that work. Some of them don't work. Some of them just don't work. But like there's the fight scene between the woman at the pizza place and Babe Bennett later on. It's just kind of okay.
You don't like that scene?
It's whatever.
I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny. I get it though. I get it. It's not necessary, but I mean, I don't know.
But yes,
I thought it was funny.
These scenes aren't necessary, and that's what that's part of what makes them good. Is they're the greatest
100%.
hits of just goofy scenes they come up with. Those are fun, and I wish the original kind of reveled in that a little more. Just kind of these goofy moments of him being just a regular
I get that.
guy. It's Sandler stuff. So it's not really Capra's wheelhouse, I wouldn't say, but it's Sandler stuff,
it's very much, like we said, keeping in line with the usual Happy Madison mode of things. It's the Sandman being as charming as possible, playing pranks, bringing on people he likes, bringing on John McEnroe, which is hilarious.
Which I assume McEnroe's has McEnroe not been on any other Sandler movies? He's had to have been in some other ones, right?
I think he has. I think he's been in one more, if I remember correctly. One or two more. Let me check. Yeah, no, he's in 3 others.
Okay.
Yeah, he's in Zohan and Jack and Jill.
Okay.
And also Anger Management. Yeah. Right, he's hilarious in Zohan. How could I forget? Okay. No,
whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, no, he's great. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one thing here that's big is Deeds. He gives out money to people. He's kind of giving out money to people. He's like, whatever. He gives money. He's at dinner. And in the dinner scene, he gives money. He pays for someone's table or something. They're on like an anniversary or something. He gives money to some kids on the street or something to stay in school. Or I don't remember. I'm trying to remember. But it's cognizant of the fact that he has a ton of money, and is able to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
I like those things.
Right. Which is a huge change from the original.
Yeah, for me.
Whereas, because in the original, it's more so he's skirting his responsibility entirely. Whereas in this one, it's like it's just like he's taking the money and he's still not like doing too much with it. But whenever he can, he's helping. Yeah, he's helping. He's still helping people. But his main focus is, I guess, Babe Bennett in this way, because we get into the scene now where she's hired to then cover him. No, sorry, that already happened before.
Yeah.
But now, sorry, my bad. We can cut this part.
We're not cutting anything.
I got confused for a second.
So...
Okay, we're not cutting anything. Cool. So anyway, where are we now in this movie?
Well, there's one scene that he... Yes. Which is another one that's fun, has some, elements that you don't love. In the fire engine, equivalent, there's an actual fire. He climbs up a building.
Right.
His woman's got all her cats she wants to save. He throws the cats down and they bounce off this trampoline really high and they fall into various people's hands. It's
that
it's
scene
fun.
is hilarious to me.
And then he like
I think it's
lady's
great.
like, she's a fat lady and he jumps off and they bounce really high and it's a little silly, but hey, at least everything else bounced high, so you can give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. But maybe maybe playing a little too deeply with some things. It's like, okay, you don't have to do that. And then
suspend your disbelief a little bit.
I know,
bro.
but then like she kisses him and she kisses him, and then it's like Mr. Deeds goes assaults a woman or whatever on the streets.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? Babe Bennett's pissed,
That's
like, Babe Bennett's pissed. She's like, what? How could you do this? She loves him. But it's the same thing. She's like, how could you do this, guys? She works for a tabloid, so she's got this goofy, Hollywood style boss.
Yes.
Very typical.
Who I think is funny.
It's fun.
I think he's funny. Yeah.
Oh wait, I didn't mention how the way that it plays with the lady in distress is a lot better here. So we got the.
Oh yes. We got to talk about this.
So she overhears.
That's why I was starting to bring it
somehow
up,
they find out he wants a lady in distress. So we got Alan Covert's character, who's like this oddly, I don't know if he's into Babe or what, but he makes weird, comments to her sometimes.
I think he's kind of into her is the implication, but yeah, she has zero interest.
But yeah, so he's like her pawn, he's acting as a guy mugging her, and Deed sees this and runs after him and beats him up and fucking he gets him on the street and he just hits him like maybe 8 times too many. It's so funny. He's just beating him up and Babe's just like, oh, okay. It's funny. Yeah, and he's like,
they show all those reaction shots of Winona Ryder wincing, like, oh, it's so good.
And he saved her, He did it. And you wonder, would the Gary Cooper Mr. Deeds do that too? And honestly, I think so. I just think I think he would. Yeah,
I think he would. I think
they just wouldn't have showed that.
Yeah, they established that, when he does punch the guys in the dinner scene. But, I do think the way they implement that is a lot funnier. Obviously, I mean, they actually like turn it into a gag.
Yeah.
Other than unlike the first one where it's just she just like faints in front of the gate or whatever.
This is a much more comic approach. This whole movie is a much more overtly totally. Comic approach.
This whole movie is a lot more tongue in cheek
very much
in
so.
That way, and it makes even its slightest failings more palatable for me.
Then one thing we got here which is a complete addition to the previous is basically Winona's character makes up this random city in Iowa that she hails from, just from riffing. She's like Winchesterton Fieldville, and he's like, oh, okay.
I love
and then lo and behold, he surprises her with a trip to Winchesterton Fieldville, and it's awkward.
Which is a real place.
Yeah. Winchesterton Fieldville, Iowa. It's this awkward.
That's to me that gag again. Like I don't mean to like sound like a total pretentious asshole about this movie, but to me that gag again just speaks to Sandler's kind of. He really enjoys this premise, and he's milking it for all it's worth, for every gag, every possible misunderstanding, and it's so much fun to watch, and I don't know, it really speaks to Sandler's talent at this and his whole crew. Totally. I mean, I believe the writer is Tim Hurley, and all the improv they do, and I don't know, to me. This movie is definitely a lot funnier than the first one. I can totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, it's way more focused on like the goofiness of the premise, like a typical Sandler movie,
totally.
than like the the deceit, and the the conniving of people around him, and like the social implications of the whole thing. It's way less focused on that. It delivers on all those things, but it fits it in when it needs to, and fills out the movie with comedy. So we're in Winchesterton Fieldville. It's this cringe kind of awkward thing. They go to a house, and these wait, this seems really funny. They go into her house, quote unquote. He's like, oh, that's it, and she's like, yeah, that's it. They go in. These kids are in there. There's no parents home. They're like, yeah, my dad built this house with his bare hands 6 years ago, and she's like, it's just goofy. And then one of the kids starts choking,
Oh yeah.
And she has declared to be a nurse. She said she was a nurse, and she goes,
So then she has to save the kid.
He's choking. Let's go. It's really funny. It's like, he's choking. Let's go.
That's another thing too. I love how eager Winona Ryder is to even take part in these gags. Totally. You know what I mean? Like it's so like she's fully committed to this role, and that scene is hilarious. The way like the motion she's doing and like the intensity and all that. It's comedy gold in my opinion. She's just as much of a comedic heavyweight in this movie as like
she's solid. Else, no, she plays off of these situations well. She's good with reactions and
totally. Yep.
So then same bit. She's got to reveal herself, but this time he's got a date at Madison Square Garden, most romantic place in America, he's gonna propose to her and all that, whatever. And they play on the Jumbotron that she's actually, the journalist, and then she runs into Madison Square Garden like, no, and then she's like, yeah, okay, I see how it is, it's really sad.
Yes.
And then he goes back home. Same old thing,
And he's
gives
depressed.
Up all his, he donates all his money to the. He donates all his money to what? The Black College Fund or something like that. What was it?
Oh yeah, something like
because
that.
Some guy, because
right.
Anderson just mentioned it offhandedly, and he's like, "All right," and so the guy sitting in his chair opens up a $40 billion check, which is so ridiculous, And he's like, "Ooh." But so he's back home, living his life the same way. Babe shows up, and what do you know? She falls in the ice, just like this Mr. Deeds' mother did. And how his father met his mother, as he had mentioned. And he's like, all right, I gotta save her, you know. But he's like, you know, he sees her in the same way when the farmer shows up, you know, he thinks he's a faker. He's saying her, he's like, all right, where's the cameras? You know, where's the cameras? Come on, you know. And then she goes underwater, you know, and he saves her, and then they're back, you know. And from there on, they're back. And yeah, he's got to go back to New York because Peter Gallagher's character is gonna sell the company, break it apart, and 50,000 jobs will be lost, which is crazy.
Yes,
and
that is
pretty excessive.
Crazy.
I don't know. I guess I don't really know how things work, but that's pretty crazy if that happened.
Yeah, the way I think about this movie is essentially the ending is he becomes the CEO of Costco or something.
Yeah,
like, it's just like, you know, he makes like a good workplace, and then that's like that's the ending of the movie. It's just like that's how he uses his billions. It's like, okay, that's like the one part where I'm like, all right, fine, like honestly, like donating it to that fund was probably a better use of the money, but okay, whatever.
And yeah, he does that, and he buys everyone in his town Corvettes. You know, that's.
Oh yeah, that too.
So anyway,
which is funny.
Yeah, it's the whole. It's like the trial scene, but it's the shareholder meeting. You know, he goes up there. He's like, "I'm a shareholder. I have one share."
Which is an interesting modernization.
He's like, "I have one share. I can talk," and they're like, "Let him talk." You know, and he goes on this monologue in a very similar way to the previous Mr. Deeds, but you know, he talks about everyone's dreams and desires, and how one guy wanted to be a ping pong champion. I think that's what Anderson said, which is silly. And then it's revealed that the real heir was the butler all along,
which is crazy. I think that reveals great
because the butler's cool, and so he gets his money.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's a fun way to. It's kind of, you know, the ending is a little normal. It's very normal. It's an average ending, but it's good. It's fine. So he gets his money, and then he's like, Longfellow Deeds, or, you know, Deeds, how can I repay you? And he's like, you know, you're fine. And then he's like, how about $1 billion? And he's like, okay, that's good. You know, and he takes his $1 billion, buys everyone in town his Corvettes, back home, operating Mr. Deeds Pizza with his lovely wife, or his lovely girl, Babe Bennett, and the best thing is he gets one of his greeting cards accepted from Hallmark, which is what he wanted all along.
Oh yeah,
you know, that was his dream.
That was his dream.
That's what he wanted.
That's true. Yeah.
And that was that was nice. You know, he had a little motivation. He had a, you know, and kind of to see that play off of his monologue of dreams, and, you know, kind of to have a guy who has aspirations and has like, you know, small town aspirations. It's cool to see that play out in the way that it
carry through, right? Yeah. No, that makes sense.
I think I appreciate it. I appreciated like the way in which the poetry, the greeting card thing was played with, because it's such a niche thing, and it's you know, it's also something on paper that can be disregarded, something that no one would, you know, regard as art or whatever, you know, but it's not, but it's cool, and it's the thing he likes.
Even the original kind of drops.
It really does. It's just like he's a poet, you know. It's but I like that element of it, because it's like a thing. It's, you know, it's a very like small town dream type of thing, that being in a Hallmark card, and it's cool to see that kind of come to fruition. But yeah, do you have anything you want to get into? I know I talked a ton these two movies just because I watched them more recently, but
no, you're good, dude. You watched them the most recently. You actually remembered what happened. My whole memory of them is completely jumbled. But what I will say is, I do have like I have some more to add, in the sense that I think, and actually this greeting card point is a good place to jump off of, because I think one scene in this movie that in microcosm kind of represents like what I love about this movie so much, and that whole like metatextual element and everything, is the scene where he professes his love for her, right? He actually writes her a greeting card, and he gives it to her on the steps. It's a very similar scene to the original, but there's just something about the way both Sandler and Ryder play that scene that, like, for some reason, like, when I first saw that scene, it made me emotional in a way I was not expecting. And there's a very sincere belief in everything in this movie, that like the romanticism, the community aspect, the love for his town, his belief in dreams, all that stuff just kind of feels like it's coming straight from within Sandler. You know what I mean? And that the greeting card being this, like, the literal piece of art that he shows her to profess his love for her. I don't know, it very much feels like this whole movie is kind of just, the Sandman explaining to us, like, why he loves making comedy movies.
Definitely,
like,
very much so.
Like from the get-go, everything about it feels like, it's almost like a mission statement.
It also hits kind of that same like lowbrow, hint where, like, the greeting cards are kind of like a lowbrow art form.
Totally.
And his comedy kind of fits into that mold very nicely as a.
But it's so exactly. You're totally right. It seems so.
But it's something that's so important
from our perspective.
Mr. Deeds, and important to Sandler.
It's so important to how he expresses himself.
And the small town people who eat it up, and they love it. They love his greeting cards. They love that he's making the greeting cards. We love that Sandler is making this movie. We love that Sandler is making movies.
Totally. And that's why, like, in this movie, a lot of those, like, obviously, this movie's not going to, like, it's not some, like, revolutionary, like, leftist masterpiece about, like, wealth distribution or whatever, but it's it shows why the Sandman's comedy resonates throughout the world. It feels kind of like a I guess, I don't know how else to put it, but it's kind of like it's the one example of why I love Happy Madison's style of comedy. And
I feel that.
What's more important is it really feels like a lot of those tenets do still come through in the capra. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the amount that Sandler does carry over kind of surprised me, and so it gave me a new appreciation for a lot of the comedy directors of old too. They all had these same sincere aspirations, and I think it very much speaks to, like, why, like, people love to laugh. People love watching comedies because it's such a great release of tension and everything, and it comes back to why we want to start this podcast. You know what I mean? Like, I just think this movie is just such a great it's just such a great example of why comedy is great. Is basically the bottom line. And so that's why for me personally, I know it's not true for a lot of people, but, like, for me personally, this movie resonates with me quite a bit, and I consider it, like, one of my favorite Sandler movies. What about you?
I think it's good. I think it's kind of middle of the road for I think it's above average for Sandler movies in general, but
it's not the most, like, creative or like joke for joke, beat for beat hilarious things he's done.
That
makes sense.
I think it fits the mold nicely, and it's a solid watch. I think it's a solid high 6 out of 10 movie, 3 out of 5.
Fair enough.
I like it.
No, I really mourn the times where comedies like this were so common in theaters, and I was discussing this with a Twitter mutual actually recently, where it really feels like a lot of these guys, their transition to streaming. Obviously, Sandler's still making exactly the kind of comedies he wants for Netflix, but there is a sense that the kind of the communal aspect of going to a theater and laughing with a bunch of unknown people is kind of dying out a little bit in a way, and I think
it totally is.
This movie really reminds me of a simpler time in that way.
True. No, and we'll get into that because so many with this podcast, because there are so many movies we'll watch that will make us feel nostalgic and remind us of different times growing up.
Oh my God,
2000s and 2010s. But you want to give it a score?
Oh yeah, dude. My score is totally a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, solid.
Like I said, it's one of my favorites. I'm a huge Sandler fan, so there's a bit of bias there. But again, to me, this movie just like speaks to all of the sensibilities in his work that I just love so much, and the work of Happy Madison as a whole. And so I think that's why it means a lot to me.
All right. Yeah, so we're good.
Yeah. Anyway, any other final thoughts from you, Cam?
I liked that movie. I did not like the original, and I'm glad that Sandler was able to make a better version of it. Yeah.
Let's go.
I prepared. We're trying out some segments, because we're trying to find our footing. Yes. So I prepared a trivia question for Kate.
Let's go.
What is the highest grossing Adam Sandler movie at the worldwide box office?
Okay. I don't know if it's going to be an obvious one or a non-obvious one. That's interesting. Dang, that's tough. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to think about this for a second. Okay, so let's see. When I think of successful Sandler movies, I think of Happy Gilmore. I think of what else? What else is probably successful? Dang, I don't know why I'm blanking on these. Okay, you know what? How about that? Yeah, let's just start with, is Happy Gilmore correct?
Not even close. Happy Gilmore
really?
$41 million. Yeah,
that's it.
The Waterboy.
Interesting.
And The Wedding Singer, Waterboy, and Big Daddy were much, much bigger. They came later. Probably was it.
Okay, so it's between those three. Is that what you're telling me?
Right. I'm just saying, Happy Gilmore. Billy Madison was 25. Happy Gilmore was 41, and then The Wedding Singer was his big breakout. It seems 123. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I have a new guess. Is it Hotel Transylvania?
No.
Okay. Dang. All right. How many more tries?
Two more tries. You get exactly 2 more tries. Yep.
2 more tries. Okay.
No.
Grown Ups 1.
No.
What? I feel like that movie was such a huge hit. I remember everybody talking about it.
It was kind of close. That was close.
Okay. It's close. Interesting.
Well, that in terms of how much money it made, it's near the top.
Okay, so Grown Ups is up there, is what you're saying. Okay. Oh wow. Okay.
One more guess.
Dang, I wish I had someone else to bounce ideas off of.
Sorry.
This is tough. No, you're good. No, it's just like, I don't want to keep giving the listeners
You've been on the right track. I would just,
You've been on the right track. Okay, so I'm getting warmer. Okay.
Warmer.
Is it Grown Ups 2?
Is that your answer? Is that your final answer?
Yes.
No, it's Hotel Transylvania 3 Summer Vacation.
Oh, come on. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
What?
Yeah.
No. I mean, like, I'm shocked. I'm actually shocked that that's his most.
All 3 of his highest grossing movies are Hotel Transylvanias.
That's hilarious. And why haven't they made one in like years?
I think they just made one, actually.
If they're so
I don't think
big.
he's in it, though.
Oh, they did?
I could be wrong.
Oh,
but they just made a 4th one, yeah.
Gotcha.
No, the 3rd one came out in 2018. I haven't seen any of these movies because the first one came out when I was, the first one came out when I was 13, so.
Yeah, I think, I've heard like some good things though, just because I think they're all directed by Genndy Tartakovsky, the guy who made Samurai Jack and the animated Clone Wars.
I'm not watching those.
I've heard like decently good things. I'm still probably not watching.
But yeah, so that was a tough one. I thought maybe you could get it, but who knows?
That is a very tough question. Okay.
You got any real quick trivia for me before we go, or no? You got 30 seconds.
Let's see. 30 seconds. 20 seconds. All right.
Okay,
go
quick.
I got it. Name the actually, okay. Yeah, okay. Here's a good one. Name the first movie that Adam Sandler has a producer credit on.
Good question.
So in a way, it's kind of like the inception of Happy Madison.
Going overboard.
Nope. You get the same 4 guesses.
Happy Gilmore.
Nope.
Little Nicky.
2 more tries. No.
I'm done.
All right.
No,
you got to get it on this one. What do you mean you're done?
I
Come
guessed
on,
too many times.
Think about it.
I don't deserve it. I don't deserve to get it right.
All right. It's the Water Boy. It's the Water Boy.
Damn it. Okay. I forgot about that one.
Yep. That's the first one he had a producer credit on, which is really interesting.
What's the chronology on that? When does that come in between?
That came out in 98.
Okay, so that's in between what, Little Nicky and
that's right between The Wedding Singer and Big Daddy.
Okay.
And also his cameo in Dirty Work.
All right, cool. All right, we're
have you seen Dirty Work, by the way?
20 minutes of it. I haven't seen it though. All right, cool.
I think it's good. It's a solid movie. I mean, Rip Norm, of course.
And Bob Saget. All right, I think we're ready to be done then, right? Next time we'll try to, we'll whittle down the runtime, and we will maybe try to throw in another fun segment. We'll try to come up with something else. But yeah, that was a good discussion though. I think that was a very good discussion. That was our first legit episode, and I think we can drop it. So enjoy it. Enjoy this feature length podcast. All right, if you're ready to sign off, then I am. Let's stop our recording.
Yeah. And I guess real quick we can go ahead. Stuff. I guess I'm Kate. I'm at 51st Kates on Twitter. Also at Kate Grant 69 on Instagram, but Cam won't be plugging his Instagram because he's a bitch. Okay.
I am.
No, I'm kidding.
I'm Cam, aka Bolo on Twitter, aka Top 5 LCJ fan. Formerly known as Eric Romero 666. And that's the only social media you will find me on. Nothing else to plug. So just go listen to our podcast. It will be available on any service. And please listen to the next episode if you listen to the first one.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
I don't know. Do you have any ideas on what our double feature
I'll
might
let you know.
be?
I'm gonna pick something.
Teases
I'm gonna
you can
pick
give?
something. Okay. I figured we don't think ahead of that until we finish this, but now it's time to get cracking. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yes.
Bye.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.